And I would love to welcome Yollana Shore to the first key conversation with the Speakers Initiates. Yeah, isn't it exciting?
The very first.
I know, how exciting. And are you looking forward to the opportunity to share your message?
I'm really looking forward to it. Thank you. Yes.
No, that is awesome. Excellent. Well, the idea behind our first key conversation is to have that conversation with the speaker so that those who may not know you are going to get a chance to get to know who you are as a speaker and what your message is all about. And I thought this would be the perfect opportunity to help people have that moment with you before they come to hear you speak. And this will also inspire them to come along if they weren't so sure. So
thanks, Terri.
I have some questions for you.
Yes.
Are you ready to go?
Yes, I'm ready. Yeah.
Good. All right, so the first question that I would really like to ask you is, what do you see as your unique skill and how's that helping you to become successful?
Right. Well, in relation to this talk that I'm giving shortly in Melbourne for the Speakers Initiate, I think the unique skill that I would say that I bring, and that also the talk is about actually, is what I call embodied leadership. And it's literally just an awareness of the physical body, the embodied intelligence that I have every day walking with me, you know, inside my literal physical body. So do you want me to say a little bit more about that now? Or
if you want to give us a little bit of a sneak peek about what that means, keep the juicy bits for your presentation, but maybe just a bit more of a hint.
Yeah, well, I think in general we're very focused in our Western culture on intelligence as a mental thing. So when we talk about how do we perceive the world, how do we make decisions about life, and how do we sort of interpret and process information, we think of ourselves as mental beings a lot.
Totally.
And we all have obviously a mental intelligence and capacity, but you know, over the last 20 years, this whole concept of emotional intelligence has become more clear, and people have realized, oh, we're also feeling beings and we have a feeling capacity.
Mm-hmm.
And embodied intelligence is sort of, I think of as the next wave beyond that. And it's sometimes it's called somatic intelligence, but it's really that it's not an emotional quality. It's a sensory, sensing, feeling, kinesthetic kind of intelligence. And that's the piece that I like to bring awareness to in the leadership conversation about how we lead our lives and how we lead our projects and our teams and our communities, and how we can actually become aware of and cultivate our own embodied intelligence in our everyday life, not just our intellectual or emotional intelligence. So.
And that sounds really interesting, and I'm looking forward to that because that is so much a subject that I relate to, and you described it really well, and I'm sure that people will now have a better understanding of that. So that's really exciting, and I can't wait to hear how you expand on that with your 30-minute keynote, which is what is part of your presentation as a keynote speaker with the Speakers Initiates. So that was fantastic. Thank you for sharing that. The next question I have is, what advice would you give to someone wanting to be a public professional speaker?
Yeah, I love this question because I have, in addition to leadership work, I do a lot of work around purpose and, you know, encouraging, helping people to find their path and follow, you know, and their purpose in life. And I kind of personally, I believe that life's too short to not do what you love.
Yes,
and so if someone is aspiring to be a speaker, I'm going to assume first that they're doing it because they're driven by some kind of passion.
Absolutely.
That there's something in their heart that's calling them. And I would say, believe in yourself. I would say, listen to the message that's in your heart, the passion that you have. Good on you for following that calling to into public speaking. It can be it can be intimidating, and it can be scary, and it can be vulnerable to share your message with others. But even if you share your message with a room full of people and no one got it, which is not the ideal situation, but let's say, no, you know, often there'll be even just one person, and they may not even say it, but there'll be one person in that room who, you know, your story might make a difference to. And so I think remembering that is something that can give you strength and courage to just go for it and share your message, believe in yourself, find your audience, you know, and that can take time, but find the people who need to hear the story that you've got to tell.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that is absolutely so true. And definitely the reason behind the Speakers Initiates is to allow people who are in that space, who are vulnerable and who are anxious about being able to step up and share a message in front of people when perhaps they've had the training but have never had that live audience experience. That's what Speakers Initiates opportunities are about, is giving people that chance to step up and share a message in front of what may be 15, 20 people, and you never know whose life you could change, and it only takes one person. And the experience I've had so far with the events that we've had, the room is nearly always changed. The dynamics change, the energy in the room changes after they've heard the messages, and people are so connected and coming up and talking to people. And the conversations are just really meaningful. And I feel privileged that I have created the opportunity, but I'm really thrilled for the speakers who get that chance to get up and share their message. Because the more people that we can reach, well, isn't that always a good thing?
Exactly. And I mean, everything you've said, is exactly why I've been attracted to the Speakers Initiate. And yeah, it's an amazing project. So I'm really excited to be part of it.
And I'm excited that you're part of it. And to anyone who's listening to this is a really exciting part of the conversation to share. Yollana's in New South Wales, and I'm here in good old, finally, sunny Melbourne, Victoria. And Yollana's taking that step to come down to Victoria to present. And I want to say kudos to you and thank you. I know not everyone can do that, geographically or otherwise. I know it's not easy, but there are speakers that are coming from across the other side of Melbourne to come to the northern suburbs where this event's going to be held. And I say that if you can be anywhere. I don't really mind if you're across the globe. If you happen to be in Australia and you want to be part of this, put your hand up. That's all I can ask. Put your hand up, let me know. And there are people that are in our Speakers Initiates Supporters Club who are actually from overseas, who have given me the indication of wanting to take that step. One may be coming to Melbourne next year to participate. So we don't know. These things are all possible. And who knows where the Speakers Initiate Club can go, or the group can go, because if I can take it where the messages need to be heard, then let's do that. So kudos to you for coming all the way down from New South Wales. I'm excited about that. I think that's it says a lot about your commitment, and I'm really thrilled about that.
Thanks, Terri.
Cool. Well, I have one other question for you. I think we've got two more questions, so let's jump into the next one. What led you to the particular project or profession that you are involved in?
Right. Where do I start?
That is a very good question in itself, because I do know a little bit. So do share just that one interesting little piece about the thing that really got you passionately involved in your project to start with. And I think it was something to do with dancing.
Okay, yeah. Well, I guess what, before I get to the dancing, what I'll say for my answer is, I think it's definitely, I'm someone who's created I actually remember, you know what, I remember finishing school and someone saying, what are you going to be when you grow up? You know, I was about, you know, people start asking that question a lot when you're in high school. Anytime from 13, they start asking, so what do you think you're going to do, you know?
Exactly.
And I remember saying, oh, my job hasn't been invented yet.
What an awesome answer.
And it turned out to be true. Like, I think we're in this time on the planet in general where there's just a huge amount of opportunity there are careers today that really didn't exist 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 20 years ago.
Even 5 years ago.
Especially even 5 years ago, online, in the digital economy, knowledge economy, like the whole thing has sort of exploded in all kinds of directions. So I feel like, you know, how did I get here? It's sort of like I surfed. I followed the wave, you know.
Good on you.
I'm part of that evolving world that we're a part of. And I also followed my passions and interests, and the dance piece. You know what? I kind of want to save it for the talk, but I'll save it for the talk. I'll say just a little bit about it is to say that, you know, as a young kid, I loved to dance, and I actually chose when I went to university, I was choosing between following some kind of dance and arts career and environmental science and policy and that kind of thing. And I ended up choosing environmental science. And I always felt like I'd left something behind, you know. I mean, I continued to dance, but I never did it professionally. And there's been something really beautiful and powerful in the last little while as I've gone through coaching and healing work to coaching work to business coaching to leadership coaching. And then I started to realize, wow, I'm actually to embodied leadership approach. And then I started to realize that I'm reclaiming something that I left behind. Totally. And it is interesting, but it relates to another story I remember from when I was around 15 is I was making these choices, which classes I would take, because, you know, we started to look at the university handbooks and all that kind of stuff.
Definitely.
And I remember my dad telling me, and he said, you know, it doesn't matter which path you choose, it'll always come around in the end.
Oh,
you know,
wow.
You'll go one way and it'll end up somehow those, you know, like if you're headed this direction, but you go that way, you'll always end up here. And totally. So I feel like finally I've got enough years under my belt where I'm starting to feel some things coming together.
I can so echo what your dad, with all his infinite wisdom, has shared with you, because in its own way, that is exactly what's happened for me too. For those who probably will get a bit of a laugh out of this, it was always said to me that I was vaccinated with a gramophone needle, implying that I was a non-stop chatterbox and talked and talked and talked. And as a little kid, that was fairly true. And as I got older, a lot of people would have said, yeah, that's still true. And it's probably even been said that I can talk underwater with a mouthful of marbles and probably recite, you know, some sort of alphabet backwards. And ironically, I did do in high school, speaking about high school, I did the plain English speaking competition way back in, I think, year 10. And believe it or not, I was the only one who completely and utterly stuffed up. And I mean, to the point where I was using those handheld prompter cards with the little messages to remind you of what the next thing to say is. And I messed them up. And then I just stood there looking at the audience of 400 students and teachers and parents and went, oh, no. And I had to sit down. And I was only probably 3 minutes into my 20-minute presentation. But guess what I did? I got back up and I reread anyway, it worked out. But it was like, here I am, you know, many, many, many decades later. And who'd have thought? So, yes, your father had infinite wisdom. So go and give him a good pat on the back and a hug from me and tell him he was so right.
Thank you.
Excellent. All right. Well, another question that we had was, many people believe that becoming a public speaker is a challenge. So why do you think that might be?
Do you mean like they set themselves a challenge, or they feel, as I said, intimidated, or they find it challenging to become a public speaker? Yeah. And I mean, of course, like there's a lot of challenges and one is just speaking in front of people, and then the other is when you say becoming a public speaker, is building a career around that, which you can actually make a living doing. So I suppose that both of those are as challenging as any other thing that you set your mind to. You know, there's a combination of skills needed and mindset, you know, like orientation, alignment required in both the act of speaking and the act of building a business or a career around speaking. But both are attainable.
Yeah, and it does come down a lot to having self-belief, and also, I guess, the belief of others around us who support us and encourage us, which I find is, yeah, absolutely. It's so vital.
Self-belief and a support system or a support network, an opportunity to learn the hard skills that you need, the practical things that you need to learn, as well as the soft skills. And all of that are things that you're supporting through the Speakers Initiate. So that's great.
Yeah. It's so vital that we feel supported. And I think that's for someone who, like myself, gramophone needle, mouthful of marbles, who could speak with, I've never been one to be frightened in front of a microphone, but the big lesson I always learned from all of that was it's one thing to be able to speak and say anything. It's another thing to actually have something worth saying or meaningful that the audience wants to hear. The big distinction. So it's not about necessarily having a fear. It's actually having something that is really relevant and that resonates with the people who are hearing it. I think that's really critical.
Yeah.
Cool. And I believe we have another question, so let's just go ahead with this one. What's important to you about social change, and what social change do you represent, or are you aligning your message with? Now, you've given us a bit of a hint, so you probably won't need to say too much more about this one because we've already partly covered it. But is there something really unique within your message that is aligned with the social cause?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I did say I was involved in, you know, I studied environmental science and have been involved in environmental and social activism for a lot of my life. But that's also, as well as being really active and on the front lines, I've also had a lot of time to think deeply about the question, what is really effective? Like so if you're going to be involved in a cause, what is the most powerful cause to be involved in? And what is the most powerful way to be involved in a cause? And all of that has kind of lit me up towards the question that it comes from the Iroquois Confederacy, from the first people of the United States, which is this concept of 7 generations thinking. Oh, yes. It's not that I'm aware of. I haven't yet connected with specific organizations that are promoting this. But for me, when I think about what is the world that I want to live in, what is the difference that I want to make, I'm starting to kind of slow my game down on the action and deepen my thinking about what is the most effective action.
Oh, wow.
And what's helping me to do that is to ask myself the question, what are the actions that I take now that would have an impact 7 generations into the future? That's about 150, 250 years. So and sometimes because we don't live that long personally, we can find it hard to think in those time frames. And it does, this links back to embodied leadership and what it is to lead in the world today. But I think back to 150, 250 years ago, Australia was just being settled. So it's a very different country. So we here have a really amazing opportunity to feel what it's like. You know, we can kind of imagine what 7 generations, what are the decisions that our ancestors made, and what is the world that we're living in as a result. And I think looking at that and then looking to the future, well, what kind of changes could I expect, you know, with what I see coming? And, you know, that's different. Some people it's planting a tree or a forest, you know, and other people, but it really, it does change the quality of your thinking when you start to think, but what would I do now that would actually, maybe it's a message, you know, maybe it's really promoting a message, but it's like, when you said relevant, it's like, what part of that message would have, you know, would last many generations, would last beyond my life? in my message is so essential to the human heart and the human story, that it's bigger than me, that it could carry and have meaning and significance for future generations too. So
that is a really, really lovely thought. Yeah,
7 generations thinking.
It's amazing, and you explain it really well, and it makes sense. There are terms in depending on how you want to view people from a personality style, and one of them is the futurist personality, and that mindset of being able to anticipate things for the future and plan for how to make things different, better, and improve things. That futurist thinking is really, really important. But I like the way you link it back to the historical thinking, because I'm actually a historical thinker. I really value what we learn from the history of things. And I find that it's really important to, as you've just reflected on, if we can look back at what our ancestors were doing, and I don't necessarily mean way back in the dark ages of dinosaurs, but, just recently, as you say, when the Anglo person settled in Australia, what difference did that make to the way things happen for us now, who are the 7th generations or 8th generations going forward? So it's really fascinating that there's a really good blend there between historical thinking and futurist thinking, and that 7th generation thinking is really powerful. So really appreciate you sharing what that means.
Thank you. And when we talk about the settling of Australia, I feel I just have to acknowledge, and what mistakes did we make, and how would we do it differently in the future as well. So because obviously there were winners and losers in that process. Yeah,
absolutely. And I would personally myself, just in this moment, I'm reflecting on that as you say that, and like to just acknowledge our Indigenous people that were the custodian people of this particular country. So thank you to them. One more question I would like to ask you: what is the one thing that you need to do first thing in the morning to help you start your day the right way?
I like to listen to meditations in the morning, and anything that kind of makes me feel good, hopeful, and have a positive expectation about the day. I just like to kind of get in the right orientation with the day. So I do that kind of consciously. And sometimes it's listening to a meditation. I'll look them up on YouTube. There's a lot of free meditations on there. And so you sort of find your favorite,
I do that.
But sometimes it'll just be looking out the window, or even just a moment inside myself, but it's kind of, and breathing, but it's just kind of taking that moment to consciously greet the day, connect with it, and sort of think about how it's going to be it's not thinking like, and then I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to do this. It's like not the to-do. Feeling into it, and feeling like, I'm just telling myself today's going to be a beautiful day.
No, that's lovely.
That's what I think. No, telling myself it's going to be a great day.
And that does
my number one thing.
Absolutely, but that's really important, I find. And I've been on a bit of a journey myself that way, and I learned to firstly do exactly what you just referenced, and that is YouTube. A lot of the audios are phenomenal for really picking up your spirits. I flick anywhere between a really great meditation one through to an empowering one, which may be some sort of motivational compilation. There's a lot of those. Or I might even, for the strangest thing, someone prompted me to look up the haka, and I found that I just needed to really resonate with that. And I've watched some of the haka performances, and again, I just got such a really warm, positive feeling, because it is such an empowering native thing that they do. And there are so many different things that we can look at for ways to get ourselves started in the right way. And I jokingly referred to having a coffee when I put the questions together. And it's like, if you've got to have a coffee, fantastic, but go a little deeper. What's that thing behind the coffee? What do you need it for? Where does it come from? Is it that thing that it's that when you take that moment for yourself, maybe that's what it doesn't matter if it's the coffee, it could be tea, it could be, a cup of Milo, it doesn't matter what it is, but that's that sense of taking time for yourself and looking at how can you start the day in a way that's going to make sure it ends as positively as you have some control over.
Exactly. And I think a big part of that for me, like having a positive mindset for the day, is appreciating things. I try and just appreciate what's going good in my life, what's the weather, the view, the bed, I just take some time to feel what's already good, and then to think about what else is going to be good as it comes along.
Yeah, absolutely. And we have so much to be grateful for. And I think that's one of the reasons that the Speakers Initiates as a concept for me really mattered, is we are in positions to be able to be incredibly grateful for the fact that we have a message that can be one that can change someone's day. But there are also people out there that are in situations that may never be able to stand up and speak for themselves. And that's why the Speakers Initiates as a concept of voices for the voiceless and advocacy as well is something that's really important. And there's room for us all to be really grateful about anything and everything. And it can be just the fact that when we wake up, we're in our own bed and we're comfortable. Or if that's not the case, then are we surrounded by something that we can find that we can be grateful for? Even in the worst possible moments, when the chaos is settled enough, we can sometimes just go back and review that and think, okay, that was horrible, but I found a way to look at that in a positive way. So gratitude's a pretty impressive skill to have, and I think if you've got it, it's something to cultivate.
Yeah, excellent. Exactly.
Is there anything else you'd like to share before we go?
I think we've covered a lot, Terri, and I am really excited for Wednesday in a couple of weeks. Oh, the birds here are excited too. Oh my goodness. I'm just really excited to come to meet you, to meet the audience, to share my message. I'm really looking forward to it. So thank you so much for the opportunity and for everything you're doing.
Fantastic. And thank you for wanting to be part of it, because that involves you having some faith in me, and I need to make sure that I can provide what it is I said I was really setting up to achieve with this. And I'm excited. I'm really looking forward to it. So with all the good luck in the world, I would love to see as many people show up as they feel motivated to do, and in wanting to be part of this, just to take this conversation further after they've heard your amazing message on stage.
Thanks, Terri. Excellent.
Fantastic. All right, well, that is all the questions, and I would just love to say thank you so much for being part of Key Conversations, our very first Key Conversation for the Initiates. And we will see you in Melbourne Wednesday, 25th of September.
Excellent. Thank you.
Fabulous. Thank you, Yollana.